Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to this week's Friday Reads, where I talk about everything that I read in the last week, what I am currently in the middle of, and what I think I'm going to be getting to next week. And we have so much to talk about because I DNF'd 5 books in the last week, which is amazing. Also, I finished 2 books, so we'll talk about those as well. But as we have been doing, I'm going to start with my DNFs. And the very first one is The Princess Will Save You by Sarah Henning. This is a YA fantasy, the first in a series, and it's an homage or reimagining of The Princess Bride. Now, I said last week that it was either going to be amazing or hot garbage, and I didn't stick around to know if it was hot garbage, but it definitely didn't work for me. Basically, I DNF'd it at page about 35. There was a chapter where our main character gives this very impassioned speech that was incredibly naive, bordering into stupidity. And it was one of those things where she wasn't even making bad points. She was actually making very good points in her speech, but she was coming at it from a very naive stance, and she wasn't very effective making those points. And I just want to be like, oh, honey, you should sit down for a little bit and think about that. Think it through. So I didn't really like that. I was pretty much done. And then I read another chapter and it was just like, oh, all the princes are evil. I'm like, okay, how? And she's like, they're evil. I'm like, okay, I'm out. And so I DNF'd it at page 35. And then Girl Gone Viral by Alicia Rai. So this is the second book in a adult romantic series. We're following our main character of Katrina, who is a former model who is trying to remain anonymous for reasons, both because she values her privacy, also because she has panic attacks and other things like that. And she has a meet cute at a cafe of sorts. She doesn't feel any kind of connection, but the person in the table next to her is live tweeting it and making up stuff to make it a meet cute. And so she freaks out and is just like, I can't be in my house. And so her head bodyguard, Jasvinder, is like, hey, I have a cabin on a farm. Do we want to go there? And so, yeah, sparks fly from there. I really struggled with this. All the Katrina chapters were actually really good. I liked it so much, but then we got into Jazz's perspective, which normally I really like to be in the other person's perspective as well. But in this case, I really hated it. It's the kind of thing where he's really had feelings for Katrina for a very, very long time. And he kind of put boundaries in place for himself. He never touches her. There is no physical contact between them. That's kind of how he justifies some of this stuff and makes it okay for him. And so, but because of this, he's really weird about things. She passes out in a bed and he's like, oh, she's got her shoes on, I should take them off because I don't want her to be uncomfortable and wake up. And he goes to take off her shoe and he has to put his hand on her bare ankle. And he's freaking out about this. And he's just like, I'll have to leave her socks on because I'm going to feel pervy about stripping wool from her bare flesh. Direct quote. It's just like, oh, I can't do this. And so it was just one of those things where I think that the author was trying to do something very specific about repressing feelings, and not just love feelings, but also lusty feelings. And it just crossed the line into kind of weird, kind of creepy. So I just did not want to continue on reading this. I made it 134 pages before I was just like, I really can't with this perspective. So yeah, definitely did not work for me. And then we have Fortune Favors the Dead by Stephen Spotswood, which I don't think anybody's surprised. But this is an adult mystery, historical mystery. We're set in the 40s and we're following these 2 women, queer women, who are this is an homage to like Sherlock and Watson, on like this really famous case. That's the premise. And this is just one where it was like, I mentioned that I'm like, I don't know, because a dude writing queer women, that's just, my track record with that is like really spotty. Like I just always pick up the ones where it's bad, right? That was actually the least of the problems in this book. I didn't get far enough to know if the characters were actually written poorly, truly poorly. It wasn't like amazing, but it wasn't really bad. Because I only made it 48 pages in. There was just so many little things about the writing. It felt like the author was trying so hard to make it feel like it was set in the 40s that it went into overdone. And like I ended this at a chapter like where the new clients have come into Miss Pentecost's office, our Sherlock Holmes character, and it's just, they're like, we know what everybody's saying about who killed our mother, right? And you're like, ooh, I want to know the juicy gossip. Everybody's saying my dad did it. And Miss Pentecost is like, I was under the impression that he killed himself killed himself. So did your mother remarry? No, it was the ghost of my father. She's like, nope, I'm out. So it was just one of those things that was the thing that tipped it over into, I just can't do this anymore. There's a lot of little things. There's like weird English things. There's trying too hard. I wasn't into it. So I DNF'd it at 48. And then we have Mirage by Samaya Dayoud. And this is, I never quite figured out what this is. This is like sci fantasy, a young adult sci fantasy. And we're following our main character who's going to get forced into being a body double for the princess, I think, or like some high up official daughter. And I didn't get that far. I only made it 22 pages into this, mostly because I did not like the writing style. I absolutely did not vibe with the writing style at all. And so this was actually really easy. Just like, nope, this is not for me. Like, I don't want to wade through this writing anymore. So 22 pages. And then the last DNF for the week, and that is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. So this is a young adult fantasy romance, essentially urban fantasy kind of romance, but essentially our main character I completely checked out on his name, Yadriel. So Yadriel is part of a Brujo community, and like he is very determined to prove that he should be part of this community as a Brujo. The rest of the community is having a hard time because Yadriel is trans, and so it's a like very typical Latinx communities. It's not necessarily as accepting of transness. So Yadriel decides to go ahead and do the Brujo ceremony by himself, but things kind of go awry, and he summons the ghost of Julian, but then Julian is unwilling to leave, and like he's got some unfinished business, and so Yadriel and Julian have to go take care of this unfinished business, and like sparks fly. And this is one of those things where I made it 18 pages, and that's literally just the first chapter. Just one chapter, which is too long, I think. I really do. And then like the next chapter is like 22 pages. I think those chapters are way too long. But in any case, I don't have a good reason for DNFing this. I just wasn't feeling it. It was one of those like, nothing really grabbed me, which is interesting because I'm usually really into books that are Latinx, because like I haven't read a ton of them and it reminds me of my home. So like I'm usually super into it, and just this I was not at all. I didn't hate it. I didn't think any of it was bad, but it was like I read that first chapter and like I kept having opportunities to pick this up and read some more, and I kept choosing to not. And I realized, I thought to myself, I could soft DNF it because maybe I'm just not in the mood for it. And like I very quickly thought, I'm never going to pick this back up. Like if I soft DNF it, that's fine, but I will never ever choose to pick it back up. So I just went ahead and DNF'd it. Like there is nothing wrong with this one. I don't know what it is. I just wasn't into it. So there you go. Those are all 5 books that I DNF'd in this last week. So I am making significant progress on my DNF project. That is 11 books I have DNF'd so far. So moving into the books that I did finish, I finished A Local Habitation by Shauna Maguire. So this is the second book in the October Days series, which is an adult urban fantasy series where we are following our main character of October Day. And she is half fae, half human, and a knight in the fairy realms, and she often gets thrown at weird problems because for some reason she always seems to be like the best person to tackle these problems. And in this book, she is sent off to a little county, like Fae County, on a diplomatic mission to figure out what is going on because the local countess has quit communicating with her uncle who is in a nearby duchy. And so, of course, when October gets there, it is madness and things get worse from there. And the story goes from there. So it took me a while to read this book, mostly because in the first half of this book, the characters that, like, the people that work at this company keep doing like horror movie stupid things. They go off on their own and then they die. And then, like, you know, another person is just like, oh, it's fine. And they go off on their own and they die. And you're just like, really? And to some extent you get it because the Fae don't really die. Like, that's not really a thing that they frequently do. And so they have zero self-preservation. And you get it. And there's like, they're keeping secrets and all this kind of stuff. And Toby is just trying to get them to trust her to unravel this mystery so that people quit dying. And like, I hate that. I really struggle with that. Thankfully, the second half of this book really picks up. There's a lot less of that stupidity, where the company starts coming clean about various aspects and we find out what's going on. And yeah, sometimes like they still go off by themselves, but they're a little bit more towards self-preservation. So it was a lot better in the second half. I always forget that it's about halfway. So once I got to that halfway point, I flew through this book. One of the things that I really like about this book is that in many ways, Toby fails. Like, we frequently don't necessarily get heroes who fail in pretty catastrophic ways. Like, there are consequences to the actions that Toby takes in this book, and inaction and just not being good enough. And it's really having read this entire series, it's really interesting to remember, oh yeah, this is where the wave started and there will be ripple effects going down the rest of the series. So this was really, like, even though I did not like the first half, this is a great book, especially for this series. And I cannot wait to keep reading on. So I gave this 3.5 stars. And if you've read the first one, this is definitely a step up in writing quality. And then the other thing I finished is Sweep With Me by Alona Andrews. This is the 4.5 book in the Innkeeper Chronicles series. It's a novella, so it comes after the 4th book. But in this series, we are following Dina, who is an innkeeper whose inn serves as a way station for alien species passing through this part of the galaxy. But Earth does not know aliens exist, and so Dina has to do everything she can to keep her guests safe and keep the inn secret. And this is really interesting because in some ways it deals with some of the aftermath from book 3. Like, there was a thing where, okay, I can't even say any of it because there's like no spoilers, right? But in this book, they're celebrating Treaty Day, which is this like 3-day holiday. I believe it's 3 days, but the rules of it are very, very clear. If any alien species asks to be a guest at your inn, you cannot refuse. And of course, all these different guests are like, I want to be all these different aliens are like, I want to be a guest at your inn. And Dina's just sitting there like, of course, because like you're the worst. Like all of these species are absolutely the worst. And so she's got to keep everybody safe and secure and get through the treaty and then deal with some of this other stuff that was, again, aftermath of book 3. And I really, really liked this. I think my biggest complaint is that it was a novella and it was just too short. So there was a lot of interesting things that I would have liked to explore more, especially these alien species. But, like, I understand why we didn't. It was utterly delightful to read. It took me absolutely no time at all to get through it. And now I'm fully caught up on this series, and I'm a little sad that there's not any more for me to read. But I gave Sweep With Me 4 stars. So that is everything that I DNF'd and everything that I read. So we can move on into things that I am in the middle of. And I am currently in the middle of Middle Game by Seanan McGuire. So this is really, really hard to sum up. I don't even know what genre it fits into. It's like some form of alternate present day with magic kind of stuff. I'll leave a link down to Storygraph if you're interested in the official description. That's where I'm at. But basically, like, I had hoped to finish this book this week. However, life decided to punch me in the face a little bit. An adult that was that was important to me when I was in high school passed away. And so I definitely was grieving and still am a little bit. But the thing that I found was that I got to page 178 in this book, and then I found out that this person had passed away, and I couldn't do this book anymore because this is a very rough book emotionally. It hits you really hard. So I had just gotten through this part where there is an attempted suicide, and now we're having to deal with some of the aftermath, and I was just like, nope. I cannot do this right now. So I had hoped to get through this. It is 100% understandable why I didn't. I am not beating myself up at all. But yeah, like I didn't get nearly as far as I wanted to. I did get 178 pages in, and what I will say that because this is a reread, like I am doing so much better with this book. I am understanding so much more, and I'm enjoying it a lot more because I understand what we're doing and what's happening so much better this time. So yeah, I was enjoying what I was reading. I don't know when I'm going to get back to it, although probably next week. So moving into the things that I am likely to get to next week, possibly Middle Game. It's going to depend on how I feel. But maybe not until like the second half of next week. I don't know. I'm not going to stress out about it. If I don't finish it this month, I'll finish it next month. I'm not going to worry. But maybe Middle Game. And then I have, so not Rosemary and Rue, but in the back of this hardcover is a novella in the October Day universe, and it's called Strangers at Court, I believe. Strangers in Court. I would like to read that next week. And then if I have time, if I'm feeling it, I will probably pick up Vision in Silver by Anne Bishop, which is the 3rd book in the Others series. And then what I have out from the library for my DNF project, the first one is The Tiger at Midnight by Swati. I forgot the last name. I just checked it out. So it'll be down below if you're interested in it. This is YA fantasy, so I don't know how it's going to go. And then I also have Acting on Impulse by Mia Sosa, which is an adult contemporary romance. I've tried to read one book by Mia Sosa already, and I DNF'd it, so I don't know if this is going to work out. And then I also have The Lady and the Highwayman by Sarah M. Eden, a proper romance. So I believe this is historical. I don't really remember. I don't always do well with historical romances, so that's why this is here. And then if I have time and the inclination, I may add on other things, but I'm trying to not check out too much from the library since we are coming up on the end of the month. But that is it. Those are all the updates that I have for you. If you have any thoughts or feelings about any of the books that I mentioned here, please leave me a comment down below. But that is all I have. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to. And until next time, have happy reading, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.